Welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, do not forget to subscribe and welcome, my love. So today's video is going to be very different. It's going to be a chit chat with me about what's in my title. So it's going to be about my pregnancy, what happened, and why I do not want to have any more kids. I'm not saying I'm not going to, but why I don't want to at this moment. If I get emotional, I'm very sorry. A lot happened in my pregnancy that really got to me. It made me view it completely differently. It was supposed to be something beautiful, and it ended up being something very scary, something that potentially even threaten the life of my daughter and I. This is going to be something very hard to talk about. I try to just think about now and that she's okay, but when I look back and think about how much she suffered and how much I went through, it really does get to me. She is sleeping right now, as you guys can see, so I'm going to try and make this quick and not such a long video. Alright, so if you guys want to hear about what happened and why I don't want to potentially have any more kids, then just keep on watching. Okay, so I'm just gonna pretty much jump right into it. This is where the first thing popped up. They told me that my baby had a white spot flashing out of its heart every time it would pump. Now, I didn't know what was going on that first ultrasound because it was very quick, and they told me they wanted me to come back tomorrow to see the actual specialist. So I went back the next day and he checked me again, and he explained to me that she had a white spot in her heart. Now, every time her heart would pump and release, the white spot would come out of one valve, I believe is how you say it, to the next. Now, because of that, I guess it meant that there was a chance that she could have Down syndrome. Now, I did not mind that. So when I found out, the only thing I worried about was how do I learn to take care of my baby if she does have Down syndrome, because obviously I have no experience of that. 24 weeks pregnant and 6 days. The next day I was gonna be 25 weeks pregnant. I actually ended up in the hospital, and they were gonna deliver her because her heart rate kept dropping. So her heart rate would drop, like, and I don't mean drop a little bit, I mean like normally a baby's heartbeat is supposed to be 120s to 150s. okay, her heart rate would drop to 50, 40 every few seconds. Now scared the crap out of me. So the first thing they wanted to do, rather than pushing me into C-section, was IV, because I could have been dehydrated, which turned out I most like I was. And once I got enough water in me, her heart rate actually picked up. They kept me there for, I want to say a day at the most. That white spot was there up until I was 26 weeks pregnant, and May 4th was the last time I went to a doctor. They told me that the spot in her heart was gone. So they said, hey, you know what, it's gone, you're good, the baby looks great, everything looks great. Because remember, every single time I would go in, they would measure my baby. During this whole time, I'm trying to get into Kaiser, because I wanted to have her at Kaiser. I trust that hospital. I've had experience with that hospital. I got approved into Kaiser when I was 28 weeks pregnant, okay? This is where stuff started happening. I went in, and remember when I was telling you guys that last hospital, they would spend 5 minutes on measurements? Well, this hospital, they spend a whole hour on measurements, Kaiser does, because they need to be as detailed as possible and make sure that this baby is growing. Not just my baby, but all babies are growing perfect. Not perfect, but at the rate they're supposed to. When she was done, she told me that she wanted me to wait there, and she wanted to go speak to the doctor. She wanted him to look at the measurements, and she came back and she explained the doctor's worried about your baby's measurements, so we need you to go to labor and delivery. We went to labor and delivery, and they told me that baby is measuring small. Not 1 week small, not 2 weeks small, but she was measuring 3 weeks small. So they kept me there. They monitored the heart, they were monitoring everything, and that is when they diagnosed me with IUGR. So they said that they wanted me to come back for another appointment. She looked good right there, but that's when they needed to start monitoring me more often. So they scheduled me for another appointment, and I went back, and they sent me to a specialist doctor in Kaiser, and they came up with another problem. They said her head is really, really small. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but my baby's head is really small. Like, see? And she's gonna be 4 months in a week. Like, her head is really, really small. So that was another thing that worried them, because what that could mean is she could have an abnormal brain, so it could be developing wrong. So saying that, they wanted to at least keep monitoring me, so I started going to NSTs. So the only time that happens if you're being seen twice a week is if you're high risk. So I went to my first NST, and my fluid was low. The lowest fluid is supposed to be is 2.4, 2.1. She was below 2. Okay, and especially since she was already small, her having a little bit of fluid was even more concerning, because they expect if the baby's smaller, there should be enough fluid. Following that, I had to go labor and delivery again. Okay, so like I said, I was in there, and they were trying to get me on fluids, and they started to notice also that her heart rate was going a little bit low. So I stayed there for a few hours, and it wasn't happening as frequently like as when I was 24 weeks pregnant, but it was still happening. I remember it was already past midnight and stuff, and they let me go home. I went back, started doing my NSTs, and she was doing pretty good the first 2 weeks. When my doctor had seen me again, they did an ultrasound. They said, she looks good, you don't have to go to your NSTs. However, I need you to see a high-risk doctor. So I went, and she's the one who said, everything looks good, blood flow looks good everywhere, your baby is fine. Don't go to your NSTs, I'm confirming, we're going to cancel all your appointments, you're good. So that happened. They sent the results over to the doctor, and then I got a call like a few days later, and they said, the doctor wants to see you again. Not that doctor, another doctor wants to see you again. However, they need to see you immediately, and it's so urgent for them to see you that you can't even go to the normal hospital you go to, which is the Fontana Center. We need you to go to the Ontario Center. They need to see you as soon as possible. So I went, and he started to measure me, and he told me he did my ultrasound, and he said, I know you went to the doctor at the other office, and she said you're okay. So he started to say, you know, okay, I'm gonna explain to you what's wrong. So look here on the screen. So he was showing me. He said, here's your placenta. And when he showed me, I was like, oh my gosh, like it changed a lot from the last time I had seen it. And he said, do you see these 3 divisions? So a placenta has 3 separate divisions. You can never see it though. The only way you'd be able to see it if you're like way past 9 months pregnant. So like 9.5, okay, 10 months pregnant, because it starts to grow old, because a placenta is not meant to last that long. Well, see, in my case, my placenta grew old too fast. He was just showing me, he said, so your baby is not eating right. Your body's not feeding your baby. Your baby's barely eating, and that is why she is so small. When that happens, your baby weighs a little bit, When he had calculated it, my baby was weighing 4 pounds at the time, and I was a month till I had to have her. So he said that when babies get to the 4th percentile, that's when doctors start to worry. However, that wasn't the case. If she was in the 4th percentile, they were going to want me to have her right away. But since she's in the 7th, that's when they set up my induction date for 2 weeks later. I still remember this because let me tell you, my baby shower was the next day. He said that I had to be prepared that she was going to be very skinny when she was born. Skinnier than most babies, and she was going to be small. Now what hurt me is knowing that my body was failing my little girl. Knowing that she wasn't eating right and she was suffering, and nobody caught that until I switched hospitals. I went home ashamed of myself, thinking, well, I know she's eating, but she's not eating as she should. And it just broke my heart. And I wondered, is that why she moves so much? Because let me tell you, my child will move more than 10 times every single hour. She was always moving, and I wondered, is she just so hungry that she keeps moving? It just broke my heart. So they let me go home. He said, I need you to go back to your NSTs for these next 2 weeks. Your set induction date is July 26th. And he had me going 3 times a week. Next day was my baby shower, okay guys? The next day was my baby shower. I went from my first NST again, and all hell broke loose. So I went in for my NST for my appointment, and right away, as soon as, because the first thing they do is they check your blood pressure and your weight. They check your weight first, then your blood pressure. They check my blood pressure. And guys, let me tell you, my feet were swollen, more swollen than an elephant's ankles, okay? My feet would never unswell. And on Friday, they had checked me for this thing called preeclampsia. They checked me for preeclampsia on Friday. I was fine. He checked for multiple things, and I was good. However, with preeclampsia, things can change from 1 hour, 1 minute to the next. Literally. My feet were swollen my whole baby shower. I'm not even joking. My swelling would never go down. It was so disgusting and so bad and painful. I literally felt like my feet were gonna explode. My blood pressure was 144/90 something. And I knew right away that was high. And I was like, what? And right away I thought in my head, they're gonna check my urine. She said, I need you to relax. You must be unfocused. They checked it again, and it was even higher. She said, relax a little bit more. I was relaxing. I was fine, girl. And it was higher. She said, okay, I need to check your urine for protein. And I already knew they're gonna check me for preeclampsia. I went in, they checked it, came back right away. They said, you have protein in your urine, which is bad. You're never supposed to have protein in your urine. So they were like, we need you to go to labor and delivery, and you know, they'll see what they can do. Which, when you have preeclampsia, there's usually nothing you can do. So I went into labor and delivery, and right away they came in, and well, they said, your protein levels are high. You are borderline severe preeclampsia, which preeclampsia is not unusual and it's not unnormal. A lot of first pregnancies get preeclampsia, so it is actually normal. However, for it to be severe is not normal. Like, I feel like I'm in the hospital again, and my blood pressure was higher, and right away, guess what happened, guys? Because they said, we're gonna have to induce you because it's just so bad. We need to get this baby out. And so I was like, okay, you know, whatever, as long as my baby's okay. Well, guess who didn't need to be induced because my preeclampsia was so severe, it just like bounced. Like, it went from borderline to severe. My body went into labor on its own. And I was laying there and boop, get my first contraction. I didn't feel it. I was looking at the screen and it went like a huge mountain, and I was like, so once they had a room ready for me, they took me into that room, and 1 in the morning came, and guess whose water broke? Mine, which I was not expecting because my mom, like, nobody in my family's water breaks. Like, the doctors always would break it. So they had to connect me to this stuff because my blood pressure kept going higher. So at this point my blood pressure was 160 over 101, and that is when they start freaking out, because when the bottom number gets to 100 and above, you could start seizing. So they had to put me on, I think it's magnesium, which was the worst. Let me tell you, you get this literally this hot rush of heat. It is so hot. You feel like it's like 110 degrees in the hospital. Like everybody's shivering because the hospital room is cold. I literally felt like I was on fire, which they warned me about. So they had me connected to all of this stuff, and then following that they checked me. I was 1 centimeter dilated, and the only thing they did give me was a pill, and they gave me like a tiny piece, and it was just to soften up my cervix, because even though I was dilating, my cervix was not softening the way it should be. My contractions were getting worse, but my labor was not progressing, if that makes sense. So I was getting more pain, but nothing was happening. I was in labor for 16 hours, so I also wasn't allowed to walk around. I had to piss, I had to poop, I had to do everything in my bed. They had to give me this tray to lay on, and they did not want me walking around. They even had massagers for my legs to make sure I didn't get any blood clots in my legs. When I was 15 hours in labor, I was at 2 centimeters. I was in so much pain, you guys. Especially because, I mean, how would you feel? Like, you're not allowed to walk around, you want to progress your labor, but your bodies can't because you're laying down. It's not helping. So I was like, I need the epidural. Like, this is painful. And they also recommended it. They said your blood pressure is getting higher. The more you're in pain, the worse it gets, and which is bad. Like, you need to calm it down. And they can't say get the epidural. They say we recommend you get it. It'll calm it down a lot. So I was like, okay. This was painful, guys. Okay, epidural usually doesn't hurt, I've heard. Mine hurt, and let me tell you why. When I got the epidural, my spine, they're all really close together. So when they were putting in the needles, they did it 4 times, and I still have the needle marks on my back. They did it 4 freaking times because it was just too tight. So she did it 4 times, got it in, and I was fine. Like, I took like 15 minutes and it kicked in, and even though it didn't hurt, I did still feel pressure down there, but it didn't hurt. I fell asleep, and an hour later, guess who's at a 10? Me. And I knew from research that epidural actually helps you dilate extremely quick. So an hour later, I was like, dang, like I could have got this epidural like when I was 2 hours in labor and could have had my baby a long time ago. But okay, so an hour later, I was at a 10, and Adelina's heart rate dropped. They woke me up. They said, honey, switch on your side, and they pushed me over on my side. Your baby's, not having it right now. So they gave me an oxygen mask, and then I was like falling back asleep, and then I was like, I had this urge to push, and I was like, I have to push, Mom, tell them. And so they come, they check me, they're like, yep, you're at a 10. And I was like, I need to push. Like, I was telling them, like, it didn't hurt, I just like had to push. And so they're all getting the doctors ready, and the doctor came in. She was so sweet, and I was so lucky. She had the smallest hands ever. So when I was ready to push, all the NICU people came in. They had the NICU incubator just in case they had to take her, and that's when it hit me that I might not be able to take my baby home because she was so small. So she had me start pushing. I started pushing, and unfortunately, because of all the problems that I was having and Adelina being in risk, no pictures were allowed, which sucks. I started to push, and then she goes, okay, I need you to push harder. She goes, and keep pushing because your baby's heart rate is dropping even more. So I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So I'm like pushing and pushing, and then she goes, okay, honey, I'm gonna have to cut you. I wasn't gonna have to cut you because your baby's so small. She wouldn't have tore you. She was like, but I can't hear her heart anymore. And I was like, okay, like do what you have to do. She grabs, and I felt, but it didn't hurt. Like, it felt like pressure of it was like snip, 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 and like it. And so she's like, okay, push again. So I pushed, and she came out, her head, and I felt her head because I felt the release, so I felt her head come out. She goes, okay, your baby's umbilical cord is around her neck. I need you to push for me again. So first she got it around her neck. My sister and my mom said like it was like tight around her neck, like she was like white. So when she took it off, my umbilical cord snapped, okay? And it snapped because like I was saying earlier, she wasn't eating well in me. Because of that, my umbilical cord was like rotting. So she took it off and it snapped. She took the baby out, put her on me, and she was so warm. Let me tell you guys, she was so freaking warm. It's cute. And then she goes, if your baby doesn't cry right now, we have to take her. She didn't cry right away. Like, she went, meh. She stopped. And they're like, okay, we need to take her. So they didn't take her out of the room. Like, they took her right there under the light. And they, like, tried to make her cry. And I heard her start crying. And it was, like, the best thing ever. And then they started sewing, like, stitching me up, which hurt so bad. Like, it didn't hurt, but, like, I could feel it even though I was numb down there. Like, it was just painful. And then, so I went back to my umbilical cord snapping. So it snapped. And, she had to put her whole hand in me, up into my womb, and she had to pull out the placenta by hand because she can't pull it from the umbilical cord because it could snap again. So she had to, and I felt her hand on my stomach, like I could feel it, and like, ooh, and so she ripped it, and I felt her yank it out. And then they had to give me antibiotics. She said, you could die. And she's like, I have to tell you, we need to get you on antibiotics because my hand was in there, even though it was with a glove, and you know, you could potentially die if we don't give you antibiotics because of an infection. So I said, okay. So she took the placenta. I never seen my placenta, but I was told, and everybody said it, the umbilical cord was gray. Okay, it wasn't that white, greenish color. It was completely gray, like rotted gray. And my placenta fit in the size of my hand. And I say my hand because it fit in my mom's hand, and my mom's hand is the same size as mine. That's how tiny it was. Now, a placenta usually takes up the bottom of a big bowl, so it's usually like huge. No, mine fit in a hand. My little girl weighed 4 pounds, 15 ounces, and she was 18 inches long. I guessed her weight and her height right, or her length. Checked like her strength and stuff, and I think, my God, up above, Lord Jesus, thank you, I was so fortunate enough that she was doing so well, because also while I was in labor they had to give me steroids for her, and it would help her lungs develop, which helped her a lot, I'm assuming, because I was able to take her home 2 days later. So as you guys can see, I did go through a lot in my pregnancy. I wanted a fun, easy pregnancy. I mean, the beginning was great. No morning sickness, just pure cravings. I got what I wanted my whole pregnancy. Like, that's cool, like food-wise. But when it came to my little girl being okay, that is where it was very scary. I'm very, very thankful to Kaiser and all of my doctors that delivered my little girl, Adelina. She is going to be 4 months very, very soon, and she is just thriving. So that is my experience in my pregnancy, and that is why I do not want to have any more kids. I feel like if I were to ever go through this again, like, it's just horrible. Everything's happening so fast, and when you think that things are going to go right, things get worse, and you're just confused. Like, what did you do wrong? Like, what was it that I did that triggered this? Like, why is my baby suffering because of me? Like, what did I do, like, for her to deserve this? So I mean, it's very, very scary. This is my little girl right now. Let me stand up. She is 10 pounds. The last time I checked, she was 10 pounds 2 ounces, and that was like a few days ago. So she is growing. She got her ears pierced a few days ago. It's been like 4 or 5 days. But I do want to thank you guys for watching this, and if you did watch till the end, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for watching. Do not forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell if you haven't already, and I will see you guys on the next video.